Greetings and welcome back to another disc comparison. I'm Brian Morris, member of Team Trilogy, and today we are going to compare two 12 speeds and an 11 speed. We have the Trespass by Dynamic Discs, a 12 speed with a glide of 5, turn of -0.5, and a fade of 3. To compare it, we're going to compare it to the Sword, which has almost the same numbers. You got 12, 5, -0.5, and 2, so a little less fade, and the much anticipated Grace. The Grace is coming in at a speed 11, a glide of 6, a turn of -1, and a fade of 2. I would put these probably, they are in the distance driver category, but more in that control distance, lower arm speed distance driver. I've often heard the Trespass called like your first distance driver, but 12 speeds are very good for my arm speed. So let's get to the comparison. Alrighty, I've been excited to do this review since I got the Sword and the Grace. I currently throw the Trespass. That's a look at that disc. And here is the Sword. Both of those are 12 speeds, and the newest disc is an 11 speed Grace in this Royal Lime plastic, which does feel very good. And we're going to start off here by throwing a couple Hyzer shots, getting it warmed up. This shot is probably around 320 feet or so. Just getting the action warmed up. But you can immediately see the Trespass with that fade of 3 definitely was coming hard. And this is a Sword. And perhaps the numbers are right on. Even with just these first couple throws, the Sword definitely seems to have a little bit less fade than that Trespass. And here is the much anticipated Grace, to say the least. And had a nice floaty glide. It definitely has that 6 glide that they're claiming. It definitely wanted to stay in the air just slightly longer than the Sword and the Trespass. Here we're going to try to throw a straight shot towards that tree that's right in the middle here. And the Trespass, these were brand new Trespasses, and I have 2 in the bag, and they're both beat in about the same. And they're currently beat in to the point where they're probably like a -1. They straighten up very easily. Here's a look at the Sword. Get a hold of this one a little bit more. You can see that turn and then that dependable fade at the end. And here's another one. Now, the reason I love Trilogy plastic is the consistencies between discs, particularly in the more premium plastics. This is a Grace, and you can see that glide. It wants to stay in the air. And here is a second Grace. And again, very consistent through the same line and get pretty much the same result. You can see the Trespasses both faded out early and dumped. And then up here we have the other 4 discs, which were all pretty close to one another. Now we're going to throw some Anhyzer lines with this. I will say that the Trespass, when beat in, can be a point and shoot directional type disc. Here's another look at a Trespass. My current Trespasses are probably getting to the understable side. I can snap them with Hyzer and they stand up. If I throw them flat, I can flip them to the right. This is a Sword. And you can see I force it over. There's a very slight headwind and almost a little bit right to left here, so it kind of smushed it. But you can see that if you want to play a really long Anhyzer, you can. This one you can, again, detect that glide, and didn't quite commit fully to that one, but it faded back at the end. And I try to correct it here on this one. And you can get a nice long Anhyzer line off that Anhyzer release. All right, here we're gonna go with distance shots, and this is a very slight headwind. And you can see these trespasses. I was mistaken comparing the trespass. I think the trespass definitely is more stable than both of the other two. Only got about 387 out of it. I can get over 400 on my beat-in trespasses. And you can see this one fades again. And it is a slight headwind, but I thought that it would flip up a little bit easier. Here we have the sword. And you can see the sword, I got into that and played a nice almost flex shot there. And here's the second sword. Again, not really hard to throw this line. Easier than the trespass. And got 413 out of the sword. And here is the Grace. The Grace probably, they were very similar. Obviously, the Grace has a different feel. The Royal Plastic doesn't have the flashing that you sometimes have on the other discs. So it's just smooth all the way around. Got 412 out of the Grace. Here's a look at where those shots landed in. I was aiming for that elevated basket you just saw. You can see that the trespasses both faded out early, and I got more out of the sword and the Grace. This is hole 1. It's listed at 381 feet. It plays more like 400 because it's just slightly uphill. And I'm going to throw the trespass here first on a line drive. I will throw the trespass on this hole, but I often will throw a beat up Ballista Pro. It all depends on the wind calculations here. And you see both of those got up into circle 2, if not circle 1. And now we're going sword, and you can see that flipped up pretty nice and skipped towards the basket. It's pin deep. Here comes the second sword. Trying to make a correction off that first one. And that one gets in the bullseye. Now we're going to see the Grace. Got a hold of this one, flipped it up. Has a nice fade at the end. And here comes the last Grace, which I actually get over a little bit, but you can see it doesn't want to flip all the way over. Holds the line, ends up just being a real straight shot. That was the Grace and the sword. The 2 trespasses faded out early, but still in putting range. And there was a Royal and a sword pretty much in the bullseye. That's it for this review. I would say that the sword and the Grace are fairly close. Trespass definitely more stable. But all 3 are very good discs. Just depends on what you like to feel in your hands. Thanks for watching this review comparison, and we will see you on the next one.